did not know that.
The Old West in America, where life was hard, often lawless, and short if you found yourself in the wrong place and at the wrong time. But fortunately, there were lawmen back in those days that seemed to be born for the times. Fearless men who seemed to have ice water in their veins when trouble came. You've probably heard of some of them, like Wild Bill Hickok, Bat Masterson, and Wyatt Earp. But today we're going to talk about one of the most amazing lawmen of that era who you may not have heard of, a fellow named Bass Reeves. Reeves was born into slavery in Crawford, Arkansas in 1838. He grew up on a plantation owned by William Steele Reeves. William Reeves had a son named George. George eventually became a colonel and served in the Civil War. It appears Bass Reeves served under him. Their relationship went south during a card game. They had a disagreement over something, and it turned into a fight. Bass was a big man who stood 6'2". He beat up George and then fled into Indian territory. Reeves lived with various Indian tribes until he was freed by the 13th Amendment in 1865, which abolished slavery. His time with the Indians proved to be very fruitful. He not only studied many of their ways, but he also learned different Indian languages, which served him well in the future. As a free man, and now no longer needing to hide for beating up the colonel, Reeves must have felt reborn. With a new lease on life, he moved to Arkansas and began trying his hand at farming. He met and then married a woman named Nellie Jennie, and they had 11 children together. In 1875, U.S. Marshal James Fagen was told he needed to hire 200 deputy U.S. Marshals. Fagen had heard about Reeves and how he knew the Indian Territory and that he could speak several Indian languages. He hired Reeves, and Reeves became the first black deputy to serve west of the Mississippi River. The rest, as they say, is history. Over the next 32 years as Deputy Marshal, Bass created an astounding record. He is believed to have arrested more than 3,000 people and killed 14 outlaws, all without receiving a single gun wound. His tracking skills and his ability to shoot equally well with his right or left hand gave him a serious advantage over most criminals. Reeves once hunted down a notorious outlaw named Bob Dozier. Dozier was wanted for a number of crimes, including rustling, horse theft, robbery, land swindles, and murder. Reeves tracked him into the Cherokee Hills, which is now Oklahoma. Dozier learned that Reeves was tracking him, and he sent word that if he didn't stop, he would kill him. Reeves sent a message back to Dozier that if he'd stop running, he'd bring him in unharmed. On the evening of December 20th, 1878, Bass heard the sound of a gunshot and then heard a bullet whistle by his head. Reeves saw a shadow moving through the trees, and the two exchanged more gunfire. It was then that Reeves could see Dozier through the trees. To his surprise, Dozier was laughing loudly because he thought he had shot Reeves. Bass took that opportunity to jump out from the shadows and ordered Dozier to drop his gun. Dozier dropped into a crouch and was about to fire, but Reeves was ready, and he killed Dozier with a shot in the neck. Belle Starr was another notorious outlaw and liked to associate with famous criminals like Frank and Jesse James. At times, she was wanted for stagecoach robbery and horse theft. She was a crack shot and allegedly carried 1 or 2 pistols with cartridge belts across her hips. But Reeves had gained such a fierce reputation that as soon as Starr learned that Bass Reeves was coming after her, she turned herself in. Reeves was also known to disguise himself and would sometimes pretend to be an outlaw or a hobo to get closer to the criminals he was hunting down. Another thing notable about Reeves was his remarkable honesty and integrity and respect for the law. After his own son was wanted for the murder of his own wife, he tracked him down and he arrested him, despite being very disturbed by the incident. His son was tried and convicted, but later given a full pardon. His son Bennie went on to become a model citizen after this incident. Reeves also arrested his own church minister when he discovered he was selling illegal alcohol. In 1907, after 32 years, Reeves retired as a marshal and became a police officer. He summed up his attitude toward the law once when he said, "Maybe the law ain't perfect, but it's the only one we got, and without it, we got nothing." Bass Reeves died in 1910 at the age of 72 of kidney disease. In May 2012, a bronze statue of Reeves was erected in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and in 2013 he was inducted into the Texas Trail of Fame. It's been speculated that Reeves may have been the inspiration for the Lone Ranger. Morgan Freeman has been talking about making a film about Reeves for years, but that has never come to fruition. With all the terrible films Hollywood produces these days, I think it's way past time for a major motion picture about Bass Reeves. Don't you? Well, that's it for another episode of I Did Not Know That. I hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe.